Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And I want to talk about this idea that I just heard, and I've heard going around actually, that you don't need to understand in order to accept. I'll say that again. You don't need to understand in order to accept. So the statement is one that says, in my defense, I may, behave however I like within my rights, and it doesn't concern you. There's a point here. However, the way it's phrased, you don't need to understand in order to accept, goes way too far, because there are many times you actually do need to understand for something to be valid, such as an agreement. Of course, there are times when you have to accept things without understanding them. Things that can't be proven or measured, things that are outside of your control, where you just can't check your facts anymore for practical reasons or personal or privacy reasons for other people, and you have to accept something in order to move forward. Yes, this happens, but when it comes to proposals, they don't qualify under this rule. No, they don't. Unless you're saying that consent is irrelevant, unless you're saying your agreement doesn't matter, that I can do whatever I want, including when it involves you, over your objection. So here's the problem with the statement. Consent is relevant. It has to be relevant sometimes, or else you have no agreements, and it's just one person deciding for another person everything that they do, which should be obviously incorrect. It doesn't work. Two adults, for example, let's just start with the most obvious situation or scenario. Two adults who are entering into some kind of agreement, or there's a proposal. The first and most important step of an agreement is wherewithal. Understanding the proposal, not just immediately, but moving forward, the consequences, the central effects of it, and the things that are going to involve you before you can actually agree to it. And the only way this statement, you don't need to understand in order to accept, can be true is if consent makes no difference. So you do have to understand sometimes. Turns out you should understand every time when possible. I would like to revise this statement because a lot of people seem to be confused about it. The better way to say it is, things that I decide for myself don't concern you. Your freedom ends where my freedom begins, my personal space. I have my property and I've got my physical person that does not concern you whatsoever. And my decisions don't concern you. And this is all valid. These are all true statements. Unless you're a dependent, which is an edge case. If you're a dependent on somebody, you can be moved. They can move you if necessary in the interest of the survival of the family or whatever. You can be overridden. Things can happen over your objection because you're a dependent. But that's not the case all the time. Not everybody is dependent on everybody else, and it's not really accurate or fair to describe it that way. Independence should be an option, should be a possibility, and it should be the assumption, really, when you're talking about consentable people, adults, for example. Independence should be the assumption. I'm going to have to get your buy-in before I make plans that involve you, which means that your understanding is very relevant. It's very important in order to accept my proposal. So it kind of baffles me. In conclusion, I don't want to go on and on. In conclusion, I think it's sad that some of these obvious oversights, these logical things that make no sense, the illogic of the statement, for example, that you don't need to understand in order to accept, people don't think about it. Apparently, they don't think about it. They just hear it, and they hear it from somebody perhaps that they trust or respect, and then they parrot the same sentiment. They repeat it over and over, and then their friends repeat it, and it becomes a common saying, true or not. Many of my videos are about agreement, the role of agreement, the role of actually consenting to something and what consent is. And I will run down the 5-part device here just in conclusion. So consent is a 5-part device. I mentioned the first part is wherewithal. Wherewithal means understanding the proposal and its central effects moving forward, not just today. The second part is consciousness. And this is important because somebody has to be awake and sober. They can't be in a coma. They have to be in a state of mind where they are able to actually consent. The third part is a qualifier for written agreements where they have to be digestible. They can't just be this big voluminous thing with stuff buried in them. They have to be easily understood without the assistance of a lawyer in their own language, such as it is. And this is to prevent the abuse of putting small print in, right? Everybody's heard of the small print. No small print. Okay, so the fourth part is the consent itself. This is listed separately because it can be retroactive. It can be implied. Consent does not have to be express. Retroactive means later on you might say, hey, I didn't have time to really review all the details, but looking back, I never had an objection. I'm 100% for it, and it hasn't changed, and I don't expect that it will change, so that's valid consent. Implied means you didn't actually say it or write it down, but for the same reasons it was valid because you're still for it. You have not withdrawn your consent. Retroactive, implied, or express are all valid forms of consent. And the last one is just to prevent abuse, because we live in a culture of people who are unfortunately sometimes a little bit shrewd and fraudulent. They will do things to rope you into a situation and abuse it with terms of service. So they say, to participate in this group, you have to abide by the rules of the group. The fifth part is no group consent. Consent is only valid between individuals. And if you think about it, you might be saying, well, how does that fit with business arrangements in terms of service that we have to agree to online? Well, that's the thing. Organizations and businesses have a responsible individual for a reason. Every single business does. There's a 51% shareholder, a CEO, some kind of person who is on the ownership, the certificate of ownership of that business, who is ultimately responsible legally for all of the agreements made in that business's name, whether you realize it or not. So in those cases, it's still between individuals until it's not, and at that point, it becomes invalid consent. You can't say, in order to shop at my grocery store, you have to have sex with me, for example. That would be a form of invalid group consent. The groceries and the romance are two separate proposals. It would be a group one way or another, but either way it's invalid. So hopefully that makes sense. And in conclusion, final thing, it's best to seek it. It helps you. It covers your butt. It's the ethical way to do it. And ethics aren't arbitrary. They are not to be inconvenient. They are not made up rules. They are to protect you. Ethics protect you. They cover your ass preemptively. They cover your ass so that when there's a problem later on, when there's an opportunity for somebody to attack you later on, if you're exposed by way of doing business or making agreements like you have to throughout life, being ethical and responsible covers your ass, because you can look back and you can say, hey, I did everything by the book. I cut through no corners or flesh. You can check it, I'm sure. So reach out if you like with questions down below. Have a great day. Thank you.